Inner space, a fluid medium, a time of rebirth. A long sleep is ending. The yearly renewal of a living tapestry is about to begin. This is an incubator, a nursery, and a way station. Its name is Pleasant Bay, a coastal lagoon on Cape Cod, Massachusetts. It's a tidal inlet, an arm of the sea, and a harbor for its life. Some are always here, but most of the creatures, like seals from the coast of Maine, are seasonal visitors. It's March, and time for the nomads to breed and raise young far to the north. The annual marathons are underway. Eider ducks seldom come farther south than the Cape for winter. Their return flight will lead to an Arctic landfall across 2,000 miles of open ocean. They leave behind them a natural sanctuary with a diversity of habitat. There are the shifting dunes of the 11-mile barrier beach, the salt marshes behind that beach, and the bay itself, 7,500 acres of shallow salt water. The season advances, and with it, a wave of incoming migrations. The salt marsh is the keystone of this bay, and others like it stretching south for 2,000 miles along the Atlantic shore. The salt marsh is crucial to the economy of coastal waters and to the vitality of the ocean. Spartina grass is the crop, and during its growing season, each square yard produces more food for animals than any other natural habitat on Earth. This is the food factory that sustains the life in the water, around the shore, and draws migrants from the far reaches of the hemisphere. April. The grass won't grow for a month. The harvest of last fall has been in storage all winter, and now is being built into the base of the food web in the water. Since few creatures eat the living grass, it must first be consumed by recycling specialists. One of the most important of these is the salt marsh shrimp. The shrimp is one of the links between the food factory and consumers of all sizes. Minnows are miniature gluttons that range throughout the bay, ready to feed on almost anything. every creek and pool and channel, the same kind of thing happens. Multiply it 1,000 times by 1,000 species, and it's a network of life and death and life again that spreads from shore to shore. An animal's feeding habits often depend on its mobility. There are snails that never leave the bottom, and minnows that never need to leave the bay. And this yield attracts the larger fish from the open ocean. Populations swell as the diversity of appetite is paced by the volume of consumption. The gull operates as scavenger and predator. A superb opportunist, he has a nose for game wherever it may be, and is never far behind when new sources of food gather and move through the bay. In offshore waters, such a gathering is now underway. There are certain fish that live at sea but must return to breed each year in the freshwater ponds where they were hatched. They have a sense of taste so acute that in salt water they can detect the diluted flavor of the minerals from the exact ponds where their lives began. That flavor becomes a homing beacon in April, when the breeding season arrives. This fish is the alewife. They enter the bay, and each is drawn to the stream that leads to the pond where it was hatched. The journey is not without hazards. This is one of the streams that leads the alewives inland from the bay. Fish can see things well above the surface, but they move on despite the threat. The mass is undeterred, and they press on past the gauntlet to a man-made ladder rising in a series of connected pools like a flight of stairs. It was built 70 years ago to help the commercially valuable alewife reach its spawning grounds. They run for weeks and by the thousands. The ladder leads them to the pond where they have laid their eggs for centuries. Each female lays 200,000 eggs a season, but in her life, only one may survive to breed. After 3 days, there is a nervous system and a minute but steady heart. When they have eyes, they are ready to struggle free. They remain in fresh water till midsummer. By then, the unique scent of this pond will be so firmly imprinted on their memories that in 4 years, each one that survives can return with an unerring instinct for home. It's May, and the first buds grow from the wild rose. Spring around the shore lags behind the season in the water, but when it comes, it is with a sudden rush. The growing season of that most important crop is underway. There are 1,000 acres of marsh here, a food factory producing 8,000 tons of spartina grass per year. That yield is divided many ways and among many creatures. More than half is carried to tidal creeks, where it ultimately feeds fish caught by birds like the great blue heron. Marsh hawks patrol the green expanse, preying on small mammals that use grass for concealment and food. Hidden from hawk and heron, there is a miniature world below. It is the domain of insects. Like other hunters and foragers of the bay, each has its strategy for survival. Spiders, like hawks and herons, are predators at the top of a food chain. They consume more insects than any other creature here. The webs play no favorites, and their daily renewal is the spider's major investment of energy. They wait, ready for another victim to immobilize and store for consumption later. Some insects spend 2 or 3 years as larvae groping through the mud. They can go hungry for long periods, but when they eat, their methods are gruesome. With a weapon that is both grappling hook and suction tube, they attack whatever they encounter, even if it's their own kind. The victor of this struggle will emerge as the greenhead fly, if it survives till next year. The praying mantis is a hunter of stealth and patience. Nearby is an adult greenhead fly, but not near enough. The mantis can fly, but not well, so it doesn't hunt on the wing. Its strategy is ambush, waiting for something to come within reach. The mantis grows larger than any other insect here. This one is 4 inches long. Prey is quickly devoured by powerful mouthparts while held in the vice grip of forelimbs that bristle with spikes. It may be a day or more before another meal, for its energy need is low. Its life may be a waiting game, but the salt marsh where it lives is abundant with food for the mantis and the other hunters in the grass. The lifeblood of the grass and the marsh where it grows is salt water. Its creeks deliver nutrients with the flow of the tide and remove detritus with the ebb. And where that exchange takes place is the richest zone. These banks are colonized by creatures that settle where the feeding is best. This is home for mussels and barnacles. near them grows a colony of much smaller creatures, a group of the tentacled polyps of the moon jellyfish. Each polyp began its life last summer as an egg that became a free swimmer and then fastened itself to a shell in the creek, awaiting the most profound change of all. The first sign is a shortening of the tentacles and the formation of discs on this quarter-inch stalk. After a few days, the sections are defined. Spasms weaken the bonds between the four sections. At the end of a week, the first jellyfish is on its own. During the next few weeks, it undergoes the final change. It has become an adult. The animal is 96% water, a fluid bell. Its growth is as rapid as its time is short. It dies 8 inches in diameter at the end of summer. The full-grown jellyfish is a planktonic giant, and like the microscopic life it feeds on, cannot swim against the tide. When the tide goes out, the jellyfish goes with it, along with the dead grass and its rich burden of food. Down the creek and into the open water of the bay, a place of many varied habitats. There are narrow, congested channels where sulfur sponges live. The convoluted surface is home for crowds of skeleton shrimp. When the tide ebbs, they emerge and feed. The tide and what it carries from the marsh benefits all the creatures in its path, no matter where they live, what they feed on, or how they hunt and forage. In the deeper waters of the bay, where the bottom is pure sand and the tidal currents are swift, the only cover is man-made. These old pilings stand far from shore, and like the banks of the tidal creeks, are a gathering place for life. They are draped with seaweed and sought by fish that need concealment, and others that come in search of food. The tide moves on, and into one of the beds of eelgrass that grow throughout the bay. The weeds conceal a diverse and crowded community of many animals, all trying to solve the same problem: where to live. The scallop lives above the bottom. Exposed like this, it has evolved a primitive sense of sight unique among shellfish. With the ability to see, combined with a sense of touch in its tentacles, the scallop is quickly aware of approaching danger. It can make an energetic, if erratic, escape. scallop grows its own shell, but the hermit crab has to borrow one. He's a perpetual tenant, and as he outgrows one home, he must look for a bigger one. Instead of growing a shell, the hermit has evolved to fit inside the shell of a deceased snail. Snails and their relatives abound, and as they die, their empty shells litter the bottom where they can be recycled by hermits. When such a shell is located, he checks it with expertise, makes a decision, and moves in. If it fits and has a little room for growth, he'll keep it for a few months. Switching shells is a matter of trial and error, and hermits often change their minds. Growing like fur on the shell of this one is a colony of hydroids that live only on shells occupied by hermits. Hundreds of individuals crowd together, doing no harm to the hermit. If the hermit leaves, the colony disappears. This shrimp carries a stowaway too, a leech that gropes in the water for food while attached to its back. The eelgrass will be dead by winter, but while it lives, each blade is a host. This one has a sheath-like colony of primitive animals called sea squirts, packed closely together. Each individual is hardly more than a single mouth. Spiral shells as small as pinheads stud the stalks. They grow in a single season, each one built for protection by its resident, the tentacled spirorbis worm. A photosynthesizing, oxygen-producing plant, eelgrass only grows submerged in shallow water where sunlight penetrates. And by May, the beds are thick enough to provide the shelter needed by pipefish. Pipefish reproduces in a strange way. The male bears the young. He has along his abdomen a pouch where the female has already deposited her eggs. Here they were fertilized and have been developing for 10 days. As the young grow within, the pouch bulges. The time of birth approaches. They hover in the water near the heart of the thick bed of grass. As the young hatch within, the pouch splits and the fry are born. Only a quarter of an inch long at birth, within a year it will be a 7-inch fish and fully grown. The tiny mouth does not change. The pipefish is a plankton eater for life. June. And summer comes to the 50 twisted miles of shoreline. bloom is on the wild rose, and the grass behind the outer beach is luxuriant, stabilizing it against the awesome friction of the North Atlantic. A crucial part of the system, this is a harsh and inhospitable frontier. The beach is like a desert. Only a few specialized plants can survive, for they are separated by a scant 100 yards of shifting sand from one of the world's most remorseless energies. Ceaselessly tumbles ashore, wearing it away, advancing 3 feet closer to the bay each year. Projecting off the shores of New England, Cape Cod was formed by the sea, and the barrier beach that shields Pleasant Bay has changed more than any feature on its coast. This map will take us back in time by 20-year leaps. At present, it looks like this. Like this in 1960, 1940, 1920, 1900, 1880, 1860, 1840, 1820, and 1800. The beach has moved in cycles, growing, disintegrating, regrowing. The map changes again, moving from 1800 to the present. 160 years pass. Today, it looks like this. During its life, this beach has been as restless as the surf, but it has always been one of the bay's most important habitats and a nesting ground for migrating terns. They come 5,000 miles from the coast of South America each year to raise their young in the thick grass on this narrow, shifting sandbar. Each pair settles and claims ownership of a territory a few yards square, and each pair must remain within it to avoid conflict with neighbors while strutting in the courtship rituals that lead to mating. After the mating period, they dig a nest in the heart of their territory. Each pair is independent of its neighbors until trespassers appear. Then the colony unifies. Its challenge is swift and aggressive. The swarm settles, and the birds return to their nests. Those that mated earliest already have eggs. Gulls as well as terns hunt in the nearby shallows. When the fish run at low tide, the terns dive after them. Some already have young to feed. The parents share the job of caring for them. As one gets ready to fish, the other takes over. As the chicks grow, they need less protection and more fish. After 3 weeks of intensive feeding, the ball of fluff is becoming a bird. In back of the shifting dunes, and buried out of sight, is the nest of an animal that is as secretive and solitary as the tern is public and social. Its nest remains unattended and forgotten all summer long, incubated only by the heat of the sun. The nest is in the dunes, but home is in the bay. It's an unlikely arrangement, but it's always worked. The young from that nest will find their way to the safety of the bay just as well as their mother, who does it every year. She is a diamondback terrapin, now returning after hiding her eggs. The round trip has taken 2 days. Unable to see her destination, it is thought that she navigates by the sun, craning her neck for a fix on its position, then advancing accordingly. Her young will use the same compass when they hatch in several months. Her parental role complete, she goes back to the water for another year. She departs and returns on a high tide, for she not only knows the time of year, she knows the tides as well. The sun and the tide are twin clocks by which the plants and animals know time. Today at dawn, the water is almost dead low. Tomorrow, it will be an hour later. The sun rises every 24 hours, but the moon, which controls the tide, rises every 25. These clocks are out of phase by 1 hour, but life here keeps track of both. As the tide trickles out, a few horseshoe crabs are stranded. They burrow down till the water returns. Mud snails feast on the minute organisms left behind by the falling tide. The creeks have drained the water from the salt marsh. The spartina grass, like the animals, lives by the tides. It will grow for a few hours now that oxygen can reach its roots. There are some animals that appear only when the flats are exposed. The fiddler crab feeds on salt marsh detritus in the sand. It can make these forays from its burrow because it has a gill that can double as a lung. It can also change its color. When low water is during the day, it is brown like the sand. Tonight, when low water is after dark, the crab turns pale gray. The males have an overdeveloped claw used to threaten other males, but it's useless for feeding. They forage only till the tide begins to turn. As it creeps across the flats, it frees the horseshoe crabs. The yellowlegs know that minnows come in on the leading edge of the rising water, and they chase them through the shallows. These birds may wake up with dawn, but they don't feed till the tide comes in. When the water gets deeper, the bigger birds work the flats, hunting the fish that hunt the minnows. When the egret spots a flicker of movement in the water, he lunges after it. If the fish scatter, the egret must stalk to another area. For others, the method is stealth. The tide keeps rising. It's already so high that today it floods the whole marsh. Cauldrons erupt as air is forced from holes. The Spartina's roots are now underwater, and it temporarily stops growing. Below the incoming tide with its burden of food, there is an awakening. The water rises and falls twice a day. Creatures like snails are well adapted to the alternating stresses of flooding and drying, cooling and heating. For most of the creatures, it means business as usual. But for the horseshoe crab, this particular tide is a once-a-year event. It is the concurrence of one of the longest days of the year and the highest tide of the month. And for the horseshoe crab, it's time to breed. While this unique and massive flood is gathering, the inundated animals of the flats respond as they do to any rising water. Most of the life in the intertidal zone emerges from the bottom only when the water comes in. The glass sea cucumber is one of these. With tunneling tentacles, it can grope through the sand, gleaning decomposed bits of salt marsh grass. The Nereus worm is a predator. When it finds a promising area, it makes a tunnel where it will wait in ambush at night. The Nereus worm tunnels the sand. The trumpet worm builds with it. This creature constructs its house as it grows, dredging up sand, cementing it in place. There are at least a dozen species of shellfish here. Each one is a simple pump between a pair of shells. Water is drawn in through one siphon, strained of plankton, and squirted out the other. The flood tide carries minnows to renewed feasting in the heart of the marsh. And by now the horseshoe crabs are near their destination. They will have only a couple of hours to breed. The females are in the vanguard, their eggs are ready. They release a scent irresistible to the males, and the gathering begins. When the tide is highest, females move to the water's edge, and a primeval scene is reenacted. The scent the females release is like an aphrodisiac. Each one is buried by a heap of males. The sand is full of eggs. The water fills with semen and bathes the eggs with a mixed genetic soup. When the tide turns, the creatures will disperse. It's taken 5.5 hours for the tide to come in. It will take about 7 for it to go. When it's out, the mudflats are re-exposed, leaving the tracks of a few who lingered too long in this ancient ritual. They must dig in and wait 12.5 hours till the next high water. The fertilized eggs are safely set in moist sand. dual clocks advance. The double cadence in the setting of the sun and the phases of the moon is a natural law the animals understand. There will be no tide quite so high for another month till the moon is full again. And it is according to the tide and the moon that the horseshoe crab eggs develop. The horseshoe crab is the sole survivor of an ancient order of animals, a living fossil that is neither crab nor even crustacean, but arachnid, a distant cousin of scorpions and spiders. An early and durable evolutionary success, the horseshoe crab was already old when dinosaurs were young. Their eggs have been developing and hatching like this for 300 million years. An eighth of an inch across, each one carries a clock that in 9 years can bring it back to breed, in the right month, on the right day, and with the right tide. A month after the eggs were laid, the next full moon draws the water just high enough for the young to float free and ride it back to the bay. September. For the terns, the busy end of a busy season, and a time of sudden storms. Terns are specialists and will eat only live food. The young can neither fly nor fish. They have moved from the nesting colony to the beach below. Swimming free with its catch, the parent returns to the beach, and the chick's recognition is instant. An adult will feed only its own, no matter how many others may beg. The constant round of feeding and fishing is a necessity. The terns, young and old alike, have an extraordinary trip ahead. They begin to leave in September, and by the end of October they are all gone, following an endless summer that will lead to the distant equatorial coasts of South America. For many plants around the shore, the end of summer is a beginning. The goldenrod is in full flower. On the wild rose there are late blooms and ripe, seed-filled hips. Autumn is on its way. In the freshwater ponds above the bay, the alewife fry have been developing all summer. It's time for them to begin their descent to the sea. known how they will return to the pond in 3 years' time, but no one knows for sure how or why they find their way from the pond to the ocean. Perhaps it's the noise of running water, perhaps the pull of the current. It is thought that in the beginning, the alewife was a freshwater fish because its eggs cannot survive in salt water, and neither can the very young. But their body chemistry changes in the fall, and then they must move to join their parents and face the rigors and the hazards of life at sea. The alewife is only one among many commuters that join the bay with the Atlantic. The two bodies of water combine to form an indivisible system. There is a certainty to the rhythm of the tides, the passage of the seasons, and the habits of the animals, but the weather is a rogue. Storms can come looming out of the North Atlantic with sudden fury. This storm is a great wind that drives all before it. The storm rips loose mats of eelgrass, and it absorbs the impact of the waves. On the outer beach, there is no such protection. The sand is swept by the gale and scoured by the surf. The wind drives the tide before it deep into the creeks of the bay. As quickly as it arrived, the storm passes. The toll is small but inevitable. The wind has carved a little more sand, smothered a little more grass. The beach has moved a few more inches in its perpetual retreat. Absorbing the blow dealt by the storm, the outer beach is the bay's first and only line of defense against the power of the sea. For the animals, the outcome is mixed. For some, it means another meal, but others have been battered, perhaps beyond repair. In the tidal creeks of the bay, the water falls as rapidly as it rose. What's left behind is stranded, both here and on the outer beach. The weather has left the place changed. It has meant death for the unlucky and unprotected, but in the hidden and sheltered nest beneath the shifted dunes of the barrier beach, new life is emerging in the warmth of the afternoon sun. These 1-inch terrapins have finally hatched after 4 months of incubation. Like the mother, each one locates the sun, gets its bearings, and the trek is underway. navigating this small Sahara, the tiny reptile sets an unerring course for the home it has never seen. October. Fall is in the air. The wild rose is withered and ready for winter. The days shorten. A new wind comes out of the north, chilling the water. This is a restless season on the Atlantic Skyway, and the air is full of nomads arriving from the north. Some will spend the winter here, but most will only pause to rest and feed before resuming long journeys to warmer quarters in southern feeding grounds. But the durable gull remains, unaffected by the urge to migrate, and able to find food and survive the season to come better than almost any other. The marsh grass takes on its autumn color. Its growing season is over. It is now that the tides can begin to claim the prodigious harvest. When the grass dies, its nutrients enter the bay for winter storage, contributing to a brief revival of planktonic life. This renewal is short-lived, a late surge in the frigid water of the bay among creatures that are not yet slowed down by the cold. The voracious appetites of last summer will be slackened by the cold. The food webs will thin. This slowdown is as much a part of life as the growth and gluttony of summer. December. A pair of mallards descends through the air of a frigid afternoon on the shortest day of the year. There are still a few stragglers, and some may spend the winter if they find open water, but many pools are frozen by a deep cold. A stillness has settled on the bay. Food is scarce. The source is sealed. The salt marsh is at rest. Its summer life is absent or in hiding. There are countless insect eggs and dormant larvae. There are minnows, crabs, and turtles that lie buried in the mud. The only constant is the tide, flowing out and in and out again, unaffected by the shortened days, by the weather, or by the ice. Protected by barrier beaches against the North Atlantic, Sheltered waters like Pleasant Bay extend south for thousands of miles along this coast. They provide the ocean with incubators, way stations, and nurseries, where expectant populations now wait for a warmer season to renew their contract with the sea.